being early? Well, today's series is Masters Experience Series is intended to provide you with information and opportunities for career advancement and lifelong learning journey. So I'm sure you're eager to find out more. So we will begin our session very shortly. Great, more people are signing in, so we shall start. Good afternoon and welcome to the Masters Experience Series brought to you by Headhunt in partnership with Center for Professional and Continuing Education, or PACE at NTU. My name's Tammy and I'm your host for today. Broadcasting live, we have with us Mr. Clement Ng, who will be sharing on the topic of Flexi Masters, a lifelong learning pathway. Now, before I hand over the time to Clement, please note that there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to type in your questions at any time during the presentation. Please also note that we will be conducting our feedback poll at the end of the session. So without further ado, I'll now pass the time to Clement. Clement, over to you, please.
Thank you, Tammy. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Clement. From what Tammy said, I'm from the Center for Professional and Continuing Education, in short, PACE at NTU. So without further ado, let me share my screen here so that you can see what I'm going to share with you for the next an hour or so. In the event, if let's say you have any questions on the topic of lifelong learning or even on Flexi Masters, please feel free to put it in the chat, and either myself or my colleagues will try our best to address these queries of yours. So just a simple introduction. I'm Clement. You have heard where I'm from. You can find me on LinkedIn or even on our official website. I'm just here to share my thoughts on lifelong learning and an initiative of NTU for lifelong learning as well. So when you look at the overview of PACE, PACE is the central role and is a central role and center for lifelong learning and continuing education and training for the university. We play a coordinating role between SSG, MOE, and we pull the strings and link up with all the NTU entities in offering courses relevant to CET and lifelong learning. So we are here to really just be the advocate of lifelong learning. So when you look at this entire structure and overview of who we are, we offer Flexi Masters, graduate certificates, specialist certs, semester-long courses, short courses, in-house learning, global executive programs, e-learning, mobile learning. But today's topic itself is on Flexi Masters, and I will use this title of Flexi Masters to anchor the entire sharing of lifelong learning. So I think everyone have heard about this, Skills Future. Skills Future has become a buzzword of recent years, I think ever since 2016, 2017. And the entire nation is talking about Skills Future. Every Singaporean will have a Skills Future credit of $500 or even a top-up for us to utilize to continue our reskilling and upskilling opportunities. Because if you recall in the past, for every professional, every working professional out there, including those who have joined us today, in the past, we have always been trying to find time to go for courses, what we call for professional development. And frankly speaking, when you think of professional development, it is really about going for courses, try to learn something and some additional knowledge that will enhance and also equip ourselves better, right, when we return to the workplace. So I just wanted to ask every one of you here, maybe you can put in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and tell me something. I'm going to touch a little bit on history. Can anyone tell me when did lifelong learning or continuing education and training started in Singapore? I just pause for a while. Maybe you can put in a chat, or maybe you can just unmute yourself and just shout out the answer that you think you have, so that all of us can hear what you have in mind. Anyone? Can someone just tell me when did we start CET, lifelong learning? Don't be shy. 2014, after our formal education, year 2000. Nice, nice. We are getting some responses. How about some more from the rest of the folks here? 1996. Okay, interesting. Any more? 2021. 2000, 2001. Nice. Okay, I shall not wait for more, but to be honest, all of you are right in that sense. Lifelong learning has started during those period of time that you have mentioned, but bringing everyone back to history itself, when you look at the history of Singapore, like what Dr. Gok Soon Ju said, we have been looking at the workforce reskilling since the day the nation was created. It's not even 1965. It was even before that, after we had our self-government in 1959, the entire evolution of CET started with the formation of the Adult Education Board on 22nd April 1960. Industrial Training Board, ITB, was set up on 1st April 1973 to kind of like oversee the industrial training for the workforce involved in the early days of industrialization of our nation building. And to further improve and expand vocational training itself, AEB and ITB merged to become VITB, Vocational and Industry Training Board. On 1st April 1979. Okay, all these 1st April, they are not April Fool's joke, to be honest, but they are really hard fact that these initiatives really were formed back then. And also, okay, for all working professionals out there, we know sometimes our financial year also starts 1st April. So we have always been joking about that as well. So when VITP was formed as the single national authority looking after the training needs of the workforce, ensuring every working professional was trained for a specific job, continually reskilled and upskilled throughout their entire life. These training can be in the form of institute-based courses, industry-based training, for example, apprenticeship, and continuing education, or even the combination of both. From the formation of VITB then, many schemes were also formed. For example, the Basic Education for Skills Training in 1983 to improve basic literacy and numeracy in the workforce, Modular Skills Training in 1984 to encourage employers to sponsor employees for training in specific skills, and the Worker Improvement through Secondary Education WISE in 1987 to enable individuals in the workforce to continue their education on a part-time basis up to Set 4 and to prepare them for the N levels then. And also TIME, the training initiative for mature employees in 1991 to encourage individuals in the workforce age 40 and above to constantly reskill and upskill to maintain industry relevance. And courses under all those schemes were offered in the 4 official languages, Malay, Tamil, English, Mandarin, and no formal entry requirements. So this entire ideology of encouraging working professionals in the workforce, right, to take up reskilling and upskilling courses without formal entry requirements paved the way of our existing training and adult education system. Adopting the concept of adult learning, especially the notion of perspective transformation as a step towards a complex, context-sensitive theory of learning, where usually adults, tend to position ourselves right in varying ways to the content of learning, and we are more motivated in self-learning. So when you look at this entire history of CET and lifelong learning, coming back to us PACE at NTU, NTU has been active in CET since the 1980s. And if everyone still recall a bit of history, NTU was kind of like formed again in 1983 in that sense, 1981 or 1983, I can't remember. And then the Center for Continuing Education was set up then to offer short courses and also to provide part-time degree programs from the engineering schools, the 3 engineering schools. So why continuing education and training, lifelong learning? Is really about employability. I think many of us in recent years, especially just before the pandemic and all, we have heard this term called the Industry 4.0. The first industry revolution was more about water and steam power to mechanize production. Then the second was like electric power to create mass production. The third was more on electronics and information technology to automate production. And now the fourth is building on the third the entire digital revolution, right, it has been occurring since the middle of the last century. It is characterized by a fusion of technologies that is really blurring the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres. The inexorable shift from simple digitalization from the third industrial revolution, right, to innovation based on combination of technologies, the industry 4.0, is really forcing everyone, the entire organizational ecosystem, to really re-examine the way everyone is doing their business. So the bottom line, however, is still the same. Working professionals like all of us, we need to understand our changing environment. We need to challenge the assumptions of what our operating teams would be and relentlessly and continuously innovate. If let's say we are to look at all these things, reskilling and upskilling is definitely a requirement. And also when it comes to reskilling and upskilling itself, why is it so? Because it gives us that agility. The Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum 2020 stated that fundamental skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, decision making are the building blocks that establish a framework to really kind of like help employees identify changes in their environment quickly, to allow them to adapt and respond to strategies targeted at producing the outcome they desire. So by embracing a learning and growing mindset and seeking out opportunities and experiences that lead to continuous personal improvement, professional improvement, employees will perceive change as not a only normal part of the environment, but something to be excited about. Because I guess there came a time when working professionals like us, we say that, okay, we go for this professional development course. Okay, how do you find a course? All right, it's like, it is not something I don't know. I came because I just want to clock up my training hours and all. But things have changed. The entire paradigm has shifted. Employees must remain focused on the future and their role in creating it, and not wait for the creation of their role. The change in employees' mindset itself, right, can also lead to a shift in the entire organizational structure towards embracing grassroots kind of leadership and organizational ability that comes with it. Companies and organizations who support decision-making structures that seek out the diverse input of broad employee community, right, usually gain access to innovative ideas, approaches to business opportunities. Finding the innovative ideas and implementing them quicker than your competitors is really the key to creating competitive advantage in the modern world of business right now. That's why you can see many organizations are coming up very quickly with products, solutions. Once an announcement is made, plug the next 1 week, the next day, or even the next month, you see something new out there in the market. And for Singapore, why is it so that the reskilling and upskilling is so important? It is really about survivability. We are an island state. We have no natural resources, although we have sea around, but we are not a fishing nation. So human resource is really just the primary resource, and the entire nation depend on human capital. Not just the core Singaporean workforce, but we can also see increasingly over the years that we have colleagues who come from other nations, forming a team together, a global team. And we draw back to education itself. You recall, MOE had this tagline, Thinking Schools, Learning Nation. That was in 1997. More than 20 years now, you can see that many things have changed. The schools are teaching differently, curriculum has changed, and many of us are being taught differently as compared to what all of us have been taught back then in schools. So when you think about this, how is it so that lifelong learning is so important now? You look at this picture. Can anyone tell me how you feel about this picture? Just a short survey. Share with everyone what you think about this picture. You can type it in the chat, unmute yourself. Everyone from home. Meet virtually, okay. You can only type out, yes. Everyone work from home, meet virtually. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, so according to a UOB survey just recently, I think last year or the year before, 9 out of 10 surveyed and employed believe they need to reskill or upskill to stay competitive in the post-pandemic world. In the fourth industry revolution, Industry 4.0 itself, will change not only what we do, but also who we are. It kind of like affects our identity and all the issues associated with it. Our sense of privacy, our notions of ownership, our consumption patterns, the time we devote to work and leisure, and how we develop our careers, cultivate our skills, meet people, so on and so forth. This is really endless. And it's only bound only by our imagination. When you look at this photo itself, in the past, when we are all back in a meeting room, people will sit opposite each other, sit next to each other. And even better, at formal settings, you can see place cards down there. Okay, the CEO sits at which corner, or even the dignitary sit at what corner, all the way down to the worker. This itself changed when the pandemic came. Like what has been shared in the chat, we meet virtually, we work from home, no one is sitting, everyone is still sitting next to each other, but on a very timeless and spaceless environment. Like now we are going through this sharing session online. But to me, it is not just myself talking. I feel everyone just next to me because why? On a virtual space itself, we can stretch or even narrow the dimensions of where we are and who we are. I am a keen user of technology. And sometimes I do wonder as well, because the inexorable integration of technology in our lives kind of like diminish our human capacities, such as compassion and cooperation in a sense. Our relationship with our phone, okay, I maybe not be able to see because of the background. I think everyone observe when you're commuting on a public transport, everyone is on their devices. Okay, like now on the MRT, we have been told, try not to talk on our phones or with each other because of the pandemic. But before that, we can really see that a lot of people are really immersed with their devices and kind of like affected who we are. The humanistic portion of it, right, is somehow a little bit missing. And during the pandemic itself, we have seen many courses translate to online. And we continue to learn in that space. But that humanistic portion has already been reduced. And now we are now trying to catch back what had been lost. So some courses are right now hybrid. You can see people back in the classroom, some virtually online because of distance and all. We are trying to integrate back certain form of interactive manner. And coincidentally, on the topic of lifelong learning itself, Minister Chan Chun Sing yesterday at the education forum, Straits Times Education Forum, mentioned this. I'll only pull this headline title from Channel News Asia. Pace, no pun intended, of acquiring skills and knowledge must intensify. Continual learning will help people remain relevant. The definition of success for Singapore education, right, cannot be defined by how many students we produce for the job market each year. Every year we produce tens of thousands of students, to be honest. But instead of focusing on the challenging of falling cohort sizes, because of our aging society and our aging society itself, we are facing falling cohort sizes. We have seen schools merging and all. So Singapore should actively seize the opportunity arising from an increasing number of workers who need retraining and upskilling. No amount of education front-loading can prepare us for life. If you recall, a lot of things that we learned back then in school, right? When we first step out to the working world, we suddenly realize, hey, what we have learned back then, right? I may not be able to use it when I'm in the working life. Like, for example, all of you have learned maths, logarithm, log, L-O-G. I can ask this very simple question every time I speak to someone. Although I'm a math student by training, but I always ask this question, do you still log in your life now? None of us do, except if, let's say, you are in that particular field. So continual learning can help us to remain current and relevant for the rest of our lives. Whatever we have learned in our schools back then, they are being formed as foundation. And what the nation is really encouraging the rest of the institutes to do, to encourage micro modules and courses for individuals to learn and keep ourselves updated. Learning is not just about the hard or soft skills, to be honest. Coming back to that example I shared when we first stepped out into the working world, when we first graduated and then stepped into the office for the first time, at the back of my mind is like, okay, this is the moment. I have graduated. I've learned what I need to learn. I need to apply what I need to learn. This is going to be the place for me to showcase my knowledge. But when the boss gives you the first assignment, then we said, wow, Piang, seriously, what I've learned cannot be directly applied. There's no direct correlation. How? A lot of us at our very first work assignment, we are faced with that. But what happens next? We learn. We learn what needs to be done for the workplace. What are the missing gaps we need to fill? Which theory or concept we have learned in school that we can use to modify and put to use? Learning takes place immediately. Workplace learning. Just like what Minister Chan said at the forum yesterday, and I iterate that statement, which I've been sharing with many of my friends and the colleagues I have. We must take responsibility for growing our own skills and expanding our own knowledge, even if our employers do, or even our employers or even employee do not actively pursue training for us. And the environment of learning is also very important. The workplace environment must be safe for people to ask questions such as, why not? What if? The environment must be safe for people to take risks and make mistakes so that all of us can learn from there. Who doesn't make mistakes, honestly speaking? I make mistakes. My former bosses make mistakes. And when people make mistakes, there is this cultural thing that is very predominant in the Asian society. We get penalized. But honestly speaking, I personally feel that when we make mistakes, we should celebrate it. Because it is through that mistake that we realize the learning takes place even faster. So why learn? In a very colloquial way of expression is learning no enough law. Why do we need to learn? For those who continue to learn, we adapt, we survive, just like the chameleon. Very often when we pass by a tree or whatsoever, we don't see the chameleon because why? It was like, okay, it's there, but I cannot see it because the chameleon adapt to the background environment. And those who love to hike, like, okay, I used to cycle, I love to walk. I also go to places, I cycle to places or even walk to places for food. So it's only when you venture out to these places, right? New horizons open to those who dare to venture. It's like when you go to places, then you realize something new. So when you learn, it is about learning something new as well. It is not just about refreshing your memory of the knowledge that you have gained, but it's to learn something as well. So why mini masters, flexi masters? Sorry. You must be thinking, okay, this is just a fancy term. Tell me more about it. when the pandemic struck in April in year 2020, and then when things intensified progressively from Chinese New Year of 2020, I can still remember that because I can see friends carrying their laptops and sending out circulars from the ministries and all to workplace colleagues and counterparts. NTU launched what we call then the Mini Masters in 2020 April, and it was being renamed to Flexi Masters eventually to better reflect the nature of this initiative. This initiative is really part of the NTU 2025 strategy that looks in mitigating impact on the environment, addressing technology's impact on humanity, harnessing science, art, technology, or learning, and responding to needs and challenges of healthy living and aging. So the whole thing about the consideration into the crucial need to adapt to a fast changing world, and also to respond to the nation's call to broaden the skill sets of graduates. The graduates then, 2020 and 2021, they literally need a lot of assistance in increasing their job opportunities and hunting in the various sectors because of the uncertain economic outlook caused by the pandemic. So when you look at Flexi Masters, you must be thinking, okay, this is just another term. Is this going to be what I'm getting on my certificate? When you look at the entire credential ecology, we have the macro credentials, the bachelor degrees, the masters, the doctorals, and then you look at the other segment here, the other quadrant here, a micro credential. Okay, these are courses and certificates that are formal, semi-formal, accredited, stackable. Flexi Masters fall into this category. It is bite-sized, yes. It is skills-based because why? It is flexible. We allow multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, competency-based as well, and stackable. The thing is, a lot of professionals always gave us this grouse of theirs. I wanted to take up my studies, but I have no time. And if let's say I want to do my so-called bachelor's or even master's, I need to invest in 4 years, 5 years, part-time basis. If let's say on part-time basis, I need to invest in evening, every week I have to come for lessons, across 13 weeks. All these are considerations. And another consideration that many these professionals will give that, oh, bachelors or masters, I think I also need to invest quite a fair bit of money. Then I recently just got married, I got my house, I got my kid. Then to study further, don't know whether I got the money or not. So the micro-credential portion came in very timely in that sense. Flexi Masters offer this flexibility. When we look at this entire Industry 4.0, governments worldwide are really endeavoring to respond to the changing nature of work and growing skills gap in response to this Industry 4.0. Other disruptive change forces such as increasing globalization, aging population, climate change. Okay, climate change is now the hot topic right now. And technological advancements, including the increasing impact on AI, automation. All these underscore the importance of upskilling, reskilling, and developing the capacity to strive in the new digital world. VUCA, I think many of us know VUCA. It is so volatile, so uncertain. So all this uncertainty and rapidly changing times that create new job opportunities and whatever that brings along the risk of displacement and an urgent need for reskilling, it is really predicted by at the World Economic Forum in 2020. That particular report, if whoever can't attend it, you can read up the report. It stated that 50% of all employees need reskilling by 2025 because the double disruption of the economic impacts of COVID and also the increasing automation transforming jobs is really impacting everyone. In a similar vein itself, right, in 2017, a report by McKinsey Global Institute claims that by 2030, millions and it's really by the hundreds of millions of workers, will need to switch occupational categories. We have to change jobs. And the Institute for the Future also coincidentally in 2017 goes further in their report saying that around 80%, more than 80% of the jobs that today's learners will be doing in 2030 may not even have been invented then. So we can debate the accuracy of such predictions. We can see all these things happening right now. It is widely accepted that new technologies will reshape millions of jobs over the next decade. And so the skill demands continue to change. So people continually need to retrain, reskill, unlearn, relearn, and redeploy to avoid redundancy and social and economic displacements in their own local community. So the traditional educational degrees, the macro credentials, are not the only answer to a working professional out there right now. Yes, we can still go through our traditional route of obtaining our bachelor's as a full-time student and all, but people increasingly need flexible and personalized and on-demand lifelong and life-wide learning that will equip them with transversal skills and knowledge to adapt to life and work in an evolving digital society. You can find this in OECD's report. Thus, despite limited evidence tracking longer-term impact, micro-credentials are now looked at another potential for the working professionals to gain that flexibility of opportunity to their macro-credentials. So when an individual starts learning, what does it signify? You can think about it. When you decide to register for a course that you are interested in, perhaps AI, or even machine learning, or for the HR practitioners out there, learning and development, or even educational management, social sciences, healthy aging, gerontology. When you sign up for such courses itself, what does it signify? Perhaps the audience here can type in how you feel when you sign up for a particular course. I hope everyone is still awake. Anticipation, yes, Valerie, thank you. Anticipation because of the knowledge you'll be able to gain. Yes, so when we sign up for a particular course, it signifies the kind of knowledge we will be gaining. It also signifies a certain motivation the adult learner has, because we are self-directed. If let's say we pull in a theory from Malcolm Knowles for adult education itself, adult learners are basically self-directed. We kind of like know what we want, notwithstanding any other so-called obstacles in our lives and all. If we are given that opportunity, we will be pursuing for the knowledge that we would like to gain. And our disposition towards learning will be very different because it is something that we are interested in. So from the course that we sign up for, we learn skills. We have to have high discipline because there will be sacrifices made. That's for sure. There is diligence because we literally have to read up. I know of friends who love to read up on some knowledge kind of topic because they are interested in that and they read a lot. And it also signifies certain trust. Trust from who? Not from myself. You are portraying a trust to your employer, letting them know that, look, I'm not just a worker who works 24/7, who works during office hours, go back, try to get my work-life balance, and then that's about it. I portray a form of trust to the employee to say that I am keeping myself relevant. I am gaining and learning skills and knowledge that will benefit not myself, but also to the organization. So that's where the entire ideology of what I've shared earlier on, right, is really reflected in the Flexi Masters. Being a comprehensive university itself, we have many specializations offered through the various colleges and schools. And the entire range of Flexi Masters, we now range more than 45, or rather more than 50 specializations. Not all are uploaded on our website yet because some of them have just been approved. But the entire ideology of Flexi Masters is really to be agile and to be relevant to the industry. And that is the reason why we are the university, through the various schools and all, plus PACE ourselves, we are seeking out industry endorsements and partnerships. Just to give an example, for engineering, we do partner with A-STAR for some of the courses. For even computer science itself, computer science and engineering, the Flexi Masters in that 15 AUs, academic units, 15 AUs of courses, and we tie up with Singapore Computer Society. And they are members. After completing some courses of it, they will receive a joint certificate once they finish 5 or 6 AUs of it. A joint certificate issued and conferred by NTU and SCS. So the co-development of content with the industry partners, and when we accredit these courses developed and delivered by the industry subject matter experts, is where the relevance to the industry will come from. Because we cannot be teaching behind closed doors or even in a classroom setting with us telling you theories and theories without consideration whether these theories are still relevant to the industry. And in order to achieve that, that is the reason why we are seeking out industry endorsements and partnerships with the industry players. And the courses for Flexi Masters, it is modular. It ranges from 1 AU, one academic unit is 13 hours. If we use the 13 hours to split into training hours itself, is about 2 days kind of course. It is blended. It's on short course format. Some of it are totally online. And some totally online, never mind. Totally online, asynchronous. People just need to look at the kind of videos that's been uploaded, and that's about it. Answer certain assessment formats and all. So a growing number of adults with a higher education degree or lower will need to reskill and upskill through more flexible alternatives than a full degree in order to overcome the gaps between the learning outcomes of the initial formal qualifications and also the emerging skills needs in the labor market. And because of the pandemic itself, right, this illustrates the urgency of creating more transparency in CET offering. There is an emerging evidence that demand for online learning will still continue after the pandemic. Okay, we are still trying. I think every nation is still trying their best to see whether is it going to be endemic or is it still a pandemic for them. The value added of flexible alternative credentials has been demonstrated as many adults in the workforce have upgraded their skills during the lockdown period. I think 2 days ago, SkillsFuture, also in the news, reported how many tens of thousands of Singaporeans have gone through SkillsFuture courses and all. They went through all these courses to reskill and upskill in order to be in a better position to cope with changes. Because once the market opens up again, definitely we will see, well, certain organizations, they will be out of the market because they could not adapt to the changes, but there will be new opportunities coming up. So the ideology of the Flexi Masters itself is really catered for the working professionals. There is no prerequisite for learners who choose to enroll in the individual courses of the Flexi Masters. If, let's say, some of you have this question at the back of your mind. And if you relate back to what I have shared earlier on in the entire history of lifelong learning itself, in the early years, the 60s, the 70s, no formal requirement is required for courses to reskill and upskill working professionals. that concept translates to now. It is still relevant. Enrolled learners for Flexi Masters can take these courses except for the semester-long ones whereby you need to commit the 13 weeks kind of commitment to learn and complete the 3 or 4 AUs kind of courses. Enrolled learners can take these courses for knowledge, for which they can just attend the course sessions, have access to the course materials on our learning management system, need to complete some simple assessment to demonstrate the understanding of the content for Skills Future claims. Many of our courses for the Flexi Masters are fund supported by Skills Future. Meaning to say that when you recall back then, one of the early initiative time, it also focuses on age 40 and above, my age range. And we get further subsidies by Skills Future, up to 90%. So when you look at some of these courses and what it means by a credit, it actually means that these courses, upon completion, you can use it to stack up to something even better, a macro credential. This chart here charts out the entire Flexi Masters initiative. For a single course, 1 AU, 4 AUs, you receive a statement of accomplishment. In the past, when we go for professional development short courses and all, what we get at the end of the day, a certificate of participation or even a certificate of completion. But for the Flexi Masters, in order to show that the individual is willing to invest the time to really learn something, you receive a statement of accomplishment. Stack up with more courses, you receive a graduate cert, 9 AUs minimally. Some schools, or rather, this is the requirement. Stack more of it, a Flexi Master certificate, 15 AUs minimally. Some of the schools in the university require slightly more, and that's about it. And what makes it even special? You can apply for credit transfer when you want to take a relevant master's. Most of the Flexi Masters offered by NTU are linked with a relevant master's. It is only when that individual wants to apply for the master's degree, that's where the entry requirements kick in. You must at least have a bachelor's, some working experience. But at the Flexi Masters or even the grad cert and the statement of accomplishment level, no entry requirement. But the individual must be able to withstand the rigidity of the content that is going to be delivered. Being a university, we do not compromise our quality assurance. So whatever we offer to the public, to the learners out there, we need to ensure it is of quality. So when you look at this chart, formal recognition of postgraduate education in the form of a master's or even a PhD may appeal to some. But like what I shared earlier on, many working professionals always grouse, no time, no money, and many more. So with this Flexi Masters itself, it gives the flexibility. You have 5 years to complete or to use after the completion of the courses for the Flexi Masters, 5 years to decide whether you want to apply for a credit transfer and apply for a master's degree. And in order to do so, and to show that you are really committed to the course itself, you must be able to obtain at least a C+ for the course. So the Flexi Masters itself, just to give an example, we have alumni in the unit from the university. After their graduation, during the pandemic period, continued their learning, obtained their mini masters back then, and then now some of them are completing their Flexi Masters. Pullman, the one in the center, she has just completed for early childhood, and we have featured her in the postgraduate supplement in Straits Times in January 2022. And on the right-hand side of this slide itself, we have a national athlete and also an alumni from Triple E. She took up immediately the micro credential cert in power engineering after her graduation from Triple E. And Malcolm on the left, immediately after his graduation, he took up then the mini masters in supply chain engineering because he believed that continuing learning in this area will be able to empower him to have a strong start by equipping him with the relevant knowledge. So I just want to quote Professor Jason Furman, a Harvard professor and former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. His take on the future of work. Work has a future. No one knows what it is. Whatever it is, education will help. The pace of change has picked up so quickly that any one of us cannot wait. If we wait, we are out of the game. So reskilling and upskilling has no time limit. It is actually right now. It is right now such that if you're on this curve itself, you are kind of like kept relevant and safe. But if none of us, every one of us, we do not want to change, we don't want to train, we don't want to reskill, we don't want to upskill, we do not want to unlearn, we don't want to relearn, we'll be made obsolete. You recall my earlier slide on employability. We will be made obsolete. We will go all the way down to the end of that food chain. We'll be made redundant and will be made the first one to go by the organization. So the time is now. Whatever you can find, be it courses from the Flexi Masters, even short courses offered through PACE at NTU, anything that the university has, and if you are keen, just do it. Just give it a try, apply for it, and have the best out of the learning. I would like to quote Henry Ford. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. It's just like the Chinese saying, 活到老学到老. If we do not learn, we'll be made obsolete. Even a young child in their growing years itself, they learn how to sit up, they learn how to walk, they learn how to eat by themselves. Before the eating portion, they learn how to hold their milk bottle themselves. For those of us who has kids, I have one recently. And I'm also learning. Why? I'm learning to be a parent. I'm also learning what it takes from the cry of the child, how she is feeling. Everyone is learning. So do not hesitate. If you have any questions on Flexi Masters, please feel free to put in your question in the chat box. We will try our best to come back to you on it. This is the end of my sharing. Thank you very much. I leave the last 10 minutes or so for Q&A. Okay, the first question, any open house, etc. How do I know if I'm suitable for the course? The online website only provide a brief background of the course. I'm unable to gauge the level of difficulty. Okay, Keijin, for the Flexi Masters itself, right, honestly speaking, there is no entry requirement. And many of these courses are taken at the postgraduate level, meaning to say that it is after the bachelor's. But some of them, not all of them are at the postgraduate level. Some of them are really designed together with the industry partners to bring the relevance of the industry into the course itself. So the level of difficulty is only when the individual is enrolled into the course. He or she must always be prepared at the highest level to take that okay, this is going to be a higher level kind of learning. He or she must be able to exhibit and display the understanding that's been taught. So whether you are suitable for the course, frankly speaking, because of lifelong learning, there is no formal entry requirement to the course. But the individual must be comfortable and must feel ready that he or she can take up the rigidity of the content. I hope that answers your question. Okay, instead of completing a FlexiMaster and continue on, is it possible? Okay, the FlexiMasters itself is usually on a particular specialization. And although it is not a no-no, people can take 2 FlexiMasters, but we discourage that because there'll be clashes in scheduling and all. But there will not be 2 FlexiMasters being able to join up to a full master degree. That is not permissible. So the idea of the FlexiMaster is to have the half load of a master's degree. So when we look at the requirements of a FlexiMasters, 15 AU. So when the individual wants to translate to and continue with a master's degree, a full master's degree graduation requirement is 30 AUs. So he or she will need to take up the remaining number of courses required of the master's degree. I hope that answers your question, Kit Yuan. So what is the difficulty level of the assessment and test? Okay, for that course, for a course itself, the difficulty level is always a direct correlation to the content of that course. So like, for example, just to say an example, in educational management, one of the program that I've completed, when we look at leadership offerings, we look into theories of transformation leadership, instructional leadership and all. And the assessment that's been given to the individual is a 5,000 to 6,000 words assignment. So the individual have to read up, must be able to understand the concept and the theories, must be able to pull relevance from the different journals and the readings and the articles that we have, and form our own 5,000 to 6,000 words essay. So when you talk about the difficulty level itself, at the postgraduate level, or even at the FlexiMasters level itself, many of these assignments are really assignments, not really say tests per se in that sense. So the difficulty really translates to how much you are willing to invest in ensuring that assignment is of quality. So the difficulty will come from how you are able to understand the concepts and the theories of what has been taught for the course. I hope that answers your question, Steph. Are certain modules only offered once a year? Yes and no. Some courses are continuously offered because it is going to be 1 AU, 2 AUs. The schools have the capacity to say that, okay, I'm able to offer it a little bit more regularly. But in the event, if let's say that particular course is a semester-long course, meaning to say that at least 13 weeks, it can be offered just once a year, or it can be offered twice a year, or sometimes even 3 times a year when we do the intra-semester, the special semester. So it depends very much on the offering schools and the lecturer themselves. Are the courses toward FlexiMasters fixed towards 15 AU? Okay, it is minimally 15, meaning to say that once you hit 15, most of the schools offering the specialization will have 15 as their baseline. But some schools will have it like 16, just another 1 more AU, and that's about it. I hope I've answered most of the questions. Will courses be delivered in combination of online, self-paced, and in-person? Yes. If let's say, just for example, a semester long, for example, it can be a combination of self-paced and in-person, because sometimes the lecturer will give certain weeks, no class, no nothing, but there will be a list of articles for the learners to complete, to digest, and to know where they can pull certain theories and concepts that will be useful in forming up their assignments. So courses are in fact delivered in combination of online and in person. The funding is only eligible when you pass the course. Okay, SSG requirements such that it is only offered once, and in order for it to be eligible, the individual must complete the course. And if you fail, you can retake the course, but it's going to be at full fee. Where may I find more information? Okay, if you realize, just let me go back my slide. Okay, you can see the URL and the QR code here for the Flexi Masters. You can find more information from our website. So basically, the transfer of credits is very fixed because it's a policy. You can either apply for transfer 12 AUs or all the 15 AUs. But there are some schools that will have additional requirements in the event if, let's say, you transfer, like for example, a particular school has a requirement for Flexi Masters, 16 AUs. And when you apply for a transfer of all these 16 AUs for the relevant masters itself, the individual, there is a compulsory 2 AU course that individual need to take. So in short, the transfer of credits, they are basically generic, but some schools may have a little one or two more requirements. If the assessment, oh, this one, I think we have, I hope we have answered most of your questions. In fact, I've answered all of them. If we do not have any other more questions, I might have to pass back the time to Tammy. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. A very good afternoon to all of you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Clement, for being with us today and for sharing with us that the secret to staying young is to keep learning. We hope you've enjoyed today's session, and we'll now invite you to participate in our feedback poll. Please give us your honest feedback so that we can further improve on our Master's Experience series. The feedback poll should be popping up on your screen, so please take a few moments to share with us your observations. Thank you very much for your feedback and for joining us today. This Masters Experience series is brought to you by Headhunt in partnership with PACE at NTU. Please join us next Tuesday, 15th of February, on the topic of blockchain and governance, presented by Yong Pong Hao School of Law, SMU. Do sign up early on our website, postgrad.sg. With that, we will end today's session. We wish you a very good weekend ahead and see you next week. Bye.